All right, so I'm going to go through this review video pretty quickly. I'm going to try and leave the section name up top so that way you know where you're at in the video at all times, and you can skip through this video if you need to. All right, so remember, when you're asked to simplify these, first thing I told you to do is highlight any of our operations that are addition or subtraction, because then that gives us our separate terms. So I know that all of these in between our additions and subtraction signs, I know that they're all individual terms. So that means I look and say, all right, well, these are being multiplied, so I will multiply these three together. So I know that this y times y times y is equal to minus y cubed. And then I know this is going to give me plus 3y. And then here I have just y plus y. Right now I look and see, do I have any like terms? Well, here I have just a y, here I have just a y, and here I have just a y. So I can combine these. This one is not a like term because it has y cubed. So when I combine my y plus y and plus 3y, I can do 1 because this is understood to be a 1 in front, plus 1 because it's understood to be a 1 in front, plus 3 for the 3 here, times our y minus y cubed. So then this will then give me 3 plus 1 is 5y minus y cubed. If you wrote it like this, I would accept it. Later on, we'll talk about y. But you can also write it as y negative y cubed plus 5y. All right, that's it for the first question. Let's move on to the second. All right, same thing here. I'm going to highlight any of my addition or subtraction signs. I only have one. So this then breaks up my separate terms. So that means I need to go ahead and multiply all these first. So here I have x times x, which gives me x squared. I have all positive, so it's going to be plus. And then here I have x. Well, I have my coefficient 4. I know that's going to go out front. There's no other number being multiplied. I then have x. I have y, and then z times z I know is going to give me z squared. These are not like terms, so this is our final answer. All right, remember, same thing. I highlight or circle all of my addition or subtraction signs, and then that breaks up my problem into separate terms. And then with each term, I'm going to figure out and simplify. So here I have my 6. So remember, our coefficients or numbers go out front. Here I have a times a, and I know that that is going to give me a squared. I have a negative and then all positive, so it's going to give me minus. My b will go first because we need to go by alphabetical order. And then I have c times c times c, which is going to give me c cubed. Remember, when we multiply, we are actually adding our powers. So c times c times c, all of our powers when they're not written are understood to be 1. So we are actually doing 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is giving us our third power. All right, last question for this section. All right, so for this one, you notice like all of them are addition signs. There's only one multiplication that's happening, and that's 3 and this y plus z. So I'm not actually going to circle all my addition signs. What I would do first here is I'm going to distribute the 3 in. So I get y plus y plus y plus z plus z. 3 times y gives me plus 3y, and 3 times z gives me plus 3z. All right, and then from here, since it's all addition, I'm just going to combine all my like terms. So all of these are like terms. So then y plus y plus y plus 3y is 6y. And then I have z plus 3z, which is then going to give me 3z plus 1 plus 1. So that will then give me 5z. And that will be your final answer. All right, that's it for section 1. Let's move on to the next section. All right, so for this section, you're asked to translate the given expression in words. So the first thing I'm going to say for this one is I need to talk about each part. So I need to talk about the first term that we have here. So I'm just simply going to say the square root of a. And then you can talk about this plus 3 in any way you want. And you can say plus 3. You can be as basic as you want. You can also say the sum of the square root of a and 3. That's the same thing. Notice here, though, I'm saying root, not plural. So if I put the s there, then both the a and the 3 will be taking the square root of, but since it's singular, it's only the first one's written with. Right here, for this one, we need to make sure that we're adding first. So I'm going to say the square root of the sum of a and 3. Right, you notice here I just said the square root of a plus 3, the square root of the sum of a plus 3. That means whatever you actually want to happen second actually usually needs to be written first. And you'll see in these other two problems here. because I need to make sure I'm adding a plus 3. So by saying the square root of the sum of a and 3, that's saying that whatever the sum of those two numbers is, I'm taking the square root of that. So it allows me to make sure that I am doing the proper order. All right, so for this one, the square would actually be second because we need to multiply the 2 and the x. So that means I'm going to start with it. I'm going to say the square of the product of 2 and x, because I'm saying the square of this. So whatever follows it is what we're actually taking the square of. And here, the addition needs to go last because squares go first in our order of operations. So that means I'm going to talk about that first. I'm going to say the sum, and this is where you'll see the difference between 1 and 4, the sum of the squares of 2 and x. So you see here, I said the sum of the square root, singular, meaning only the first one got square root. This I'm saying the sum of the squares, plural, meaning both need to be squared. All right, that is it for section 2. All right, for here, we're given an expression and we need to translate it we're given a sentence and we need to translate it into an expression. All right, so for this one, it says the sum of A and the square root of B. So that means sum with this n, I can rewrite this and put a plus sign. And then whatever's on the left-hand side of my plus sign and whatever's on the right-hand side of my plus sign, I just simply write. So the sum, it's going to be A plus the square root of B. All right, notice that it's not roots. It's not plural, so we're only going to take the square root of 1. All right, this one says the square root of, so that means I know that that is happening last because we're taking the square root of all of this. So that means all of everything that follows this needs to be inside my square root. So it's the square root of the sum. So once again, I know it's going to be plus sign. So I'm going to then take where this end is, I'm going to rewrite it as plus. And we'll look at the left and we'll look at the right. But notice here, it is the squares. So it's a plural. So that means both a and b are being squared. So it's a squared plus b squared. Right, for the next one, it says the difference of 3 and the square of x. So remember, whenever we see difference, order actually matters for what we're doing with this. So the same thing that I did with my sum, I can go ahead and I can just rewrite this as minus. Because remember, whatever was written first goes first in our subtraction. And whatever gets written last goes second as well. So I can rewrite the n as a minus, just like I did the n with a plus. So the difference of 3 and the square of x is 3 minus the square of x is x squared. All right, this one says the quotient, so that means division. So once again here, I can just change this to a division sign of the square of a and b. See how it's not plural, so therefore only a is being squared. So it'll be a squared over b. All right, that is it for section 3. Let's move on to section 4. All right, so I'm going to actually break this video up into two parts. So this will be the last part of the first video. And then the second video will have parts 5 through 7. Just so that way you don't have to keep skipping through all this video. It could just be a little bit easier for you guys. All right, so the first one you're asked to write for this part, section 4, you're asked to translate this into words. So this equation into words. So I will then just say T is. Remember, is means equals. So I just need to now describe this 4 and this s somehow. This needs to be described. So you can say 4 times s. You can say T is the product of 4 and s. You can say T is 4 multiplied by s. Any of those work. Right? So for number 2, we're going to say P is, so that way we can talk about this first part. And now we need to make sure that x and y are both being taken the square root of. So whatever I do second, I usually start with first. So P is the square root of, and then I need to talk about what's going on inside. So we can say x divided by y. We can say P is the square root of the quotient of x and y, and any of those are acceptable. All right, our last two here, we need to then translate from words into an equation. So K is, I know that means K is equal to the sum. So once I see sum, wherever my end is, I'm just going to change it to plus. So the sum of m and n. So that means the sum is of m and n is just simply m plus n. All right, L is, so L is equal to half of. So that means this needs to happen at the very end. So whatever is happening here is just going to be divided by 2. Or if you want it, you can write multiply by 1/2. But half of the square root of, so once again, everything that's following this is going to be within our square root. So we will then write our square root, the product of P and Q. So I am just simply multiplying P and Q together. So that will then be your final answer for that. All right, that is it for this video. And then I'll go over, you'll have a separate video going over the rest of the sections.